Hi, everybody, and welcome back to True Confessions of a PK. This is episode 4. I'm learning to love. I'm Karina.
I'm Karla.
And welcome.
Welcome. So tonight, just letting you guys know that if you hear any noise in the background, we do apologize. They are working on construction and they never left.
They're right here, too.
So we didn't have any other choice because we wanted to be able to, work on this. So we're doing it. We're just going to do it and hope for the best. Getting back on track. This episode is going to be, we're going to be discussing love. There are so many different aspects to love, and we're not going to be able to discuss them all tonight, but we hope that throughout our episodes, we will be able to discuss more areas of love. Tonight, we're just going to be discussing 2. And yeah, that's it. Okay. So to start off, we're going to read a Bible verse that you
may know.
Yeah, it's a very famous Bible verse. But if you don't have a Bible, just Google it if you want to be able to read it again. And if you don't want to read it again, then don't read it. But if you do have a Bible, you can go ahead and find this Bible verse, even if you don't have a Bible. Anyway,
just keep going.
The Bible verse is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. And this is what it says. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. Perseveres.
Perseveres.
Right? Yeah. Love never fails. We're reading this Bible verse because because I feel like this Bible verse does a really good job of summing up love, especially in the areas that we want to talk about today. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be discussing love towards others. As we've been discussing throughout our episodes, we've talked about like the difficulties that pastors' kids have to go through, and how in a lot of these cases, these difficulties come upon us through other people, whether it's like their actions, their words that come to affect us, or, just a simple like look, And so, I'm going to be discussing love towards others, because it's something that we have been growing in. We have been learning on it. There was, as you can guess, there was a period where I personally felt hurt by people from the congregation at our church, and I didn't want to feel that way because I knew that it was affecting the way I was serving God and serving others. Because essentially when you're serving others, you're serving God. You're doing it because you're not doing it for the people because they demand it from you. You're doing it because you know that it pleases God, It pleases Him when you're helping others, or when someone's going through a difficult time, so you show an act of kindness towards them. You can serve in different areas in different ways. But just know that when you are doing it, don't do it for the people, do it for God. And that changes perspective. Yeah. And that's something that I had to learn, because at first, growing up in church, we have been serving our whole lives, in different areas. And sometimes at the beginning when I was serving, I feel like I was doing it more so because I wanted people to see, oh, like, look at Karla, like she's such a good pastor's daughter, you know, like she's living up to her title, yeah. And so when things would go wrong, or when I would be affected by words or whatever by other people, my way of serving would change, and I was no longer serving with a whole heart. Yeah, I was serving just because I felt like it was expected from me, or just because I felt like it was a requirement, you know. And when you're serving because it's a requirement, you're no longer serving with love. You know, when you're serving because it's demanded from you, you're no longer serving with that love that should be there, you know? And so when I started going with my journey with God, because like we have mentioned before, just because you're born into a Christian family, just because you're born into a pastoral family, doesn't mean that you're saved, doesn't mean that you have a relationship with God, you know? And I feel like I'm just pointing that out again because I really want to emphasize on that. That's just it's a idea that a lot of people have that is not correct, you know? And so when I actually started going through my journey with God, I started to experience what love was. You know, I'm a very, very difficult person, I think, you know?
You think?
Because I feel like most of the time I feel like a lot of people don't understand me. I feel like it's hard to read me too, like not read me like read my hand. No, I mean,
whoa. Okay, hold on.
I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
Like, I think you're overthinking.
Okay.
I don't think people were thinking that. I think people were understanding where you were going.
Okay, it's because I just don't want people to be like, oh my God, because that happened to me once. Okay.
Okay, but you, okay.
This is trauma, PTSD.
No.
Anyways, yeah, I feel like I'm a really hard person to read. I'm a hard person to understand, yeah. And because of that, I feel like I don't know, I just always felt like it was really hard for people to love me.
Okay.
And also I'm just weird. I'm weird. Since I was little, I've just been that little kid, you know, that was thinking about dark thoughts. No, I meant like I meant you're on a roll. Oh my God, they're just gonna
now
capture all my freaking laughter.
You're confusing me.
I meant dark thoughts, like, because I would always say like morbid. Yeah, not morbid. Okay. I've always had morbid thoughts, or like a dark sense of humor. There we go. I don't know what's wrong with me today.
You just like...
Anyways, so I've always been like that. You can just like right now when I'm talking,
just keep going.
It's really hard to understand me.
You understand yourself.
So I just felt like, yes, going back on topic. When I started going with my journey with God, I started realizing that someone really did show me unconditional love. You know, that perfect love. I'm not saying that my family never showed me that, because it's different, you know? Like, we have our ups and downs, you know? And I'm not saying that relationship with God isn't going to have its ups and downs. It will, but because of us, not because of him.
Because we're not perfect.
Yeah. And so I remember when I started having a relationship with God, I started realizing, you know, little things. So I remember there was this sister at church who would always, like, for some reason, till this day I don't understand, but she would always be like, hey, after church she would be like, hey, take out the trash, can you go take out the trash? And I would be like, I don't want to do that, like, why me, you know? And I always felt like it was done because we would always, like, after church we would talk to like
other people,
and so I don't know, I just felt like I was just picked on in that aspect. And so I remember one time I was like, yeah, I'm not going to take out the trash, you know, I'm already serving in different areas and that should be enough. But when I said that, it's like one of those moments when you say something and then you feel like
you regret
wrong.
it.
Yeah, like those words that came out of you were wrong. So when I started having a relationship with God, I would look back to moments like that and I would realize my mistakes. You know, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with taking out the garbage after church. You know, that's a way of serving God. Just like if I'm not talented when it comes to music, but I'm talented when it comes to art, I can serve God through that art. You know, I don't have to be musically talented to serve God. Or things like that, you know? People always think like there's no room for me in church because I don't have gifts and talents.
Yeah, because I'm not the one. I can't sing like they can sing.
Yeah.
Or I can't play like they can play. Or I can't teach like they can teach.
And I always thought that was required. Like, in order to serve, you needed to have
to fill in one of those.
And so when I started having that relationship with God, I started realizing like those things, that way of thinking was wrong. Just like the way I was serving was wrong because I was doing it not out of love. I was doing it out of requirement, you know? And so I remember like it was just those moments where you start growing and you start maturing in the Lord and you start realizing like in order to love, like it's because my way of thinking was I would see people and honestly I would always think like, man, church is always filled with hypocrites, you know, like they always demand things from you, or especially like pastors' kids, they're always demanding things out of us, and then like they're not even living their lives according to what they demand from us, you know. And so I always saw it like that, and then I started realizing that I had to love these people unconditionally, and that was a huge issue and struggle for me because I would even tell God, like, I have conversations with him, so don't come after me, okay? But
I'm sure everyone is.
I would always tell God, and I would be like, God, how do you love this individual? You know, like, how do you love them? And I'd be like they do this or they do that. Like, I'm already tired of them. Yeah. And you continue to love them. And I remember one time I told him, I think I told all of y'all. If not, I just probably told Dad. But I was like, thank God I'm not God. You know, because I can't stand people. You know, like, I can't stand them. Their actions, their way of being, like, they're so rude. No matter how much you show them that you care for them, they either mess up or they're always, like, hurting you, or they just do something to mess up that relationship, you know? And so because of that, when I would serve those people, sometimes I would do it like to spite them, or I would do it like a las fuerzas, like I would do it forcefully. Yeah, I wasn't doing it, like I said, wholeheartedly. But then I started realizing, you know, through God and Jesus, like, I'm not perfect. You know, I always make mistakes, and yet God is always there for me. You know, like, he gives he provides things for me, and sometimes I mess up our relationship. I'm the one that walks away. I'm the one that turns my back on God. I'm the one that, has those mental breakdowns, and I blame it on him, And so I started realizing, just like those people are selfish, I have been selfish too. And so every time I would struggle, or every time I had a moment where I'd be like, oh, this person's getting on my nerves, I would always think like, hey, calm down, put yourself in their position, or this is just a mistake that they're doing. They're going to end up realizing that they did wrong, And I started growing in patience. I started realizing that serving them comes with love. And in order to love them, I need to have patience, because they're going to mess up, because they're going to do me wrong, but just like God never gives up on us, and I want to be able to fulfill my purpose, I want to be able to get the closest I can to him, then I need to be that reflection of the image of Christ here on earth. And in order to do that, I need to show them love unconditionally. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I'm not. Obviously, you just heard my entire speech. I still struggle with it. I still have a hard time, but I want to do better, and that's the important part. Like when you do something wrong, but you recognize it, like, oh, I'm coming to understand that my way of thinking wasn't right, or because my actions were right.
It shows that you grow. It's showing that you're maturing.
Yeah. But, just like, in order to serve others with love, you have to first start with yourself.
Yeah. And this is my part.
Hopefully I made sense, because if not...
It did. Something that I wanted to add real quick before I start with my part is, if you know the story of the prodigal son, in this case, you can take up the position of his brother, right? So if you don't know the story of the prodigal son, quick summary. Okay, yeah, go read it. Go read it. But quick summary would be, the prodigal son asked his dad for his inheritance. His dad gave it to him. He left. He did what he wanted to do with it, spent it all, and then basically disgraced his family in that way. But then he came back because he had nothing left. He didn't want to come back, but he did at the same time, right? Got rid of that pride. Came back. The father accepted him, welcomed him back, open arms. And that's the summary, right? But you have the brother who asks his dad, like, why he would welcome him back that way, right? And he questions, because he's like, I've been here this entire time. I have been this perfect son who never left. I didn't disgrace this family. I didn't dishonor this family, But he who did, you're welcoming him back with open arms, and you're having a feast for him. And I feel like a lot of the times, as pastors' kids and as individuals like me, I have taken up that mentality, where I've seen people who leave the church come back. They leave the church again, and then they come back, and I see that, and I'm like, God, like, why? Why do they keep doing that? Why do they keep doing it? And why do you just welcome them back that way?
And meanwhile, you're like over here suffering.
Yeah, like I see them come back, and then they receive these blessings, and it's like, okay, why didn't I receive those blessings when I've been here? But to understand, to be able to love others unconditionally, like you said, you have to love yourself that way also. A lot of the times I would let people do things, right? And if they messed up, if they treated me wrongly, I'd be like, oh, they're having a bad day. And I understood that with others. But I didn't understand that with myself. Like, I in the first episode, I think it was, I mentioned that I set myself out to be the perfect pastor's kid, right? So with that meant I couldn't make mistakes. I couldn't have a bad day. I couldn't talk back. I couldn't treat others wrongfully, right? So when I did...
Quick pause. How does it feel?
What?
Because the amount of pressure that probably had on you, like, you're freaking crazy, man.
I don't know.
Like, now, like, I feel like just hearing you say that, like how you went to become the perfect pastor's kid, like, I just felt like this burden.
Well, I wasn't
and I wasn't even doing that. I know, but I'm saying, like, I can't imagine the amount of stress and that put on you. Like, I'd probably be crying every freaking night.
Well, and I was. I mean, you guys knew that. I would literally come home crying. That was literally my life every day, crying. And I'm not exaggerating. So if you think I am, I'm not. But yeah, like, I put myself under all this pressure. And so I was damaging myself, right? Because I was setting myself up to be a perfect pastor's kid when I am nowhere near perfection.
You were literally poisoning yourself.
A
slow death.
Yeah. And I wasn't even making my way out of it, you know? I was going deeper and deeper into the hole.
Your grave.
Yeah. So... that's what it's called. So I had to learn that it's okay for me to have a bad day, right? It's okay for me to make a mistake, because just like I can forgive others for making their mistake, I can forgive myself for making my own mistakes, right? Even if somebody else didn't tell me, hey, you did this wrong. I was already noting it, because I was like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. I already knew I did this, like, I talked to this person and I talked to them wrong. And I already knew that. And so it would, like, stay in my conscience and just, like, dwindle there. And it was like guilt. Dwindle. Is that a word? Dwindle? I thought it was. Anyway, yeah, it is. So I was like, it's like dwindling there, and it's like guilt. Like, you're being selfish, you're doing this. And so obviously those are negative thoughts, right? And at one point I did have really negative thoughts, but they were all about me. And so it affected how I saw myself. It affected the way I treated myself. And at one point, it did affect how I treated others. I grew very distant with people. I didn't like socializing with people because I saw everything I did wrong. And I had to learn that as a person, I am not perfect. I am not going to be perfect. I am going to make mistakes every single day. Some days I'm going to have really bad days where I'm just in a mood all day long. Some days I'm going to have very joyous days where even though I mess up, I'm going to laugh about it and keep going, right? But at the end of the day, I am still me, God still loves me, and I should still love me, right? So I had to learn that. And to learn that was very difficult because I already had these standards for myself. These people had standards for me, but I wanted to, like, exaggerate those standards. So I had higher standards for myself, and I had to learn to lower those standards. I remember in one retreat, a group from a different church came, and they were like, okay, close your eyes, we're going to pray, and you're going to learn how God sees you today. And I was like, okay. So they told us to write it down. And I struggled because I was like, is this me thinking it or not? And so I just started writing down all these things. And I filled up like the page. And I was like, looking at it, and one of the members from the other church came, and they were like, wow, like you see how you saw how God sees you, like everything that he sees you were able to see today. And they were like, how did you recognize his voice? And I was just like, I don't know, right? But then I came to think about it later on, like that stuck with me, and I thought about it later on, and I was like, I recognized his voice because it was so distinct from mine, you know? I recognized his voice because mine was full of negativity towards myself. Mine would have never said that about myself to me.
Damn, that's strong.
Yeah. But in this case, like, God's telling me all of this, and I'm like, that's how I knew it wasn't me. Because at this etapa, this time period of my life, I wasn't seeing myself that way. I would have never thought about myself that way, but he did. He did. And that was like the moment where I was like, shift, right? And I started this journey of loving myself. And as I mentioned in the other episode, stop, you're gonna make me cry.
Wait, you're making me cry.
My eyes are watering. As I mentioned in the last episode, there was people in my life that God used, and they changed my perspective about myself, right? The words that they would say to me, because when people do that, like, you're seeing, or as the person who is receiving who is on the receiving end of these comments, you're seeing God, right? When the family friend told me about my voice and how it sounded so sweet, like in that moment, my head wasn't, oh, it's this person's telling me. My mind wasn't thinking, oh, this person's telling me this. No, my mind was like, God, like,
this is coming from
you're
God.
reminding me. This is a reminder, right? And to me, it's like, okay, like, kind of like a breath of fresh air, right? Like walking out after being stuck in an elevator all day, right? Like, it's just like a breath of fresh air. I was trying to think of the most like constricting thing.
Oh.
So that's what it felt like. And so to me, that was like, wow, I want this every day. And if God can use other people to remind me, why can't I remind myself? You know? I don't do those things where you look in the mirror and you're like, you are this, you are that, you know? I forgot what those are called.
I tried doing that one time, and then it just twisted, and I was like, stop looking at me.
What are they called? Like they're like
Positive thoughts.
no. Rem.
Mirror thoughts.
No. Pep.
Pep talks.
Oh, they're pep talks? But I thought I had like a specific word for it.
No, you just look in the mirror and you give yourself pep talks.
Okay, well, if you guys know what it is, because I know that there is a specific word for it, you can send it. You can send it in. Yeah, but like I don't do those things. But in the things that I do, like throughout my day, the activities that I partake in, the work that I'm doing for Stop. The work that I'm doing, like at work or whatever, I have to remind myself, like,
wait. Isn't this like your second week of work?
No, come on. Not in that work, you loser.
I'm just joking with you.
Like even while I'm editing the podcast,
yeah,
like I'll remind myself, because jerk, right? I'll remind myself, like, this might not come out 100% perfect the way like I want it to, right? But because I know that I'm working my best, like I'm trying my best, I'm giving 100, I'm not half butting it, right? Then it's gonna come out great. So I have to constantly remind myself that. I have to see it throughout my day. I have to tell myself, like, today's gonna be a good day. If I see, like, the first thing, if I walk out of the house and something already goes wrong, I will be like, you know what, okay, this is a minor setback, but it's still gonna be a good day. It's still gonna be a beautiful day. It can be like thundering outside, and I'm just like, you know what? The Lord said, let it rain on Texas, and we need this water. So it's going to be a good day. It can be 100 degrees outside, and I'll walk out there, I'll start sweating, and I'm like, okay. Like, yes, I'll probably get grouchy, but afterwards I'm going to be like, you know what? It happened because it needed to happen, and the Lord knows why. So carry on. It's gonna be a good day, And I have to, like, that's the mentality that I'm trying to keep.
It's a everyday.
Yeah. Struggle. Because I don't want it to be like, you know what?
Or not struggle, challenge.
Challenge, yeah. Because I don't want it to become how it was before, where I set all these standards for myself. I had all these things basically weighing on me. And like you said, you just heard it and it felt heavy. But living that, like, it was heavy. And so if something is so heavy on me, I'm just going to be like depression station, like sadness from inside out. Like, that's
we told
just
you
gonna
that
be,
was you.
They
We're like, Karina, you're basically sadness from inside out.
Yeah.
Especially when they're dragging her.
So, but that's not what I want to be,
Yeah, you want to be joy.
No, I don't want to be joy. I don't want to be joy, but I don't want to be... Because joy was just like...
You don't want to be the person that you are pushing yourself to be. You don't want to be the person that other people are pushing you to be. You want to be the person that God has called you to be.
Oh my God, that was perfect.
That's what you want.
Said,
That's what you want to reach.
Yeah.
And like when you were saying, I think the part where that got to me was the part that you were like, I was able to recognize God's voice because it wasn't filled with negativity like mine was. Personally, like everybody has their journey and all that. And in my personal experience trying to love myself, it was a struggle because I would hear not my voice, but I would hear the voice of all these other people. Mm-hmm. And it was always negative. It was always like, you need to do better. It was always like, you're not going to be able to reach this. You're not going to be able to accomplish this. You're not going to be able to read this. You're not going to be able to read because, my struggles with
Karla
dyslexia.
has dyslexia.
And people,
I don't think we had mentioned it before.
Yeah, and people would tell me like, you're not going to be able to accomplish or read this because of that. Or you're not going to be able to be healthy. Like, just all these voices that fill your head, and then you're struggling to even hear yourself. And when just that moment of clarity of that one voice that's like, you can do this. I'm with you. You're not alone. That brings this like...
It's like in the movies.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, like, there's all this noise, and it's like...
And like...
No. it's like, shh. And it's just quiet.
Oh.
I was still in my example.
Oh. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
And you can continue.
Letting all these people's voice into my head. And I was the one. And then the worst part was that I was taking it out on God. Because I was blaming God for my dumb decisions.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
You know, I would blame it on him because I would tell him, like, why did you give me, like, why did you allow me to do this? You know?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He literally tells you, I give you free will. And you're like, why did you let me do this?
Yes. I was like, why did you let me do this? You could have stopped me. You could have put something in my way so I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have thought this, you know?
But if you wouldn't have done it, you wouldn't have learned.
Well, yeah, that too. But also, like, it's my fault.
Yeah.
And I need to learn to take responsibility. You know, it says, like, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy. You know, it doesn't boast. It's not easily angered. God is the definition of love. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not. You're not.
And love
you cry all the time.
Okay.
You're
just adding that in there now.
I get easily angered sometimes. I get frustrated. Does that mean that I don't have love in me? No. It means that I'm growing.
In love.
In love. I'm growing. I want to be able to love like God. It's difficult because we're humans.
Yeah, like you know that story about the tower? Is it of the Babel? La Torre de Babel, right? That's what it's called.
I don't know how to say it in English.
Essentially, people were building a tower because they wanted to be like.
They wanted
like
to
God.
reach.
They wanted to reach the heavens, right? And that's how different languages came to be. Now they don't speak the same, right? Because that's the decision the Lord made.
Extra information.
Hold on. Well, I was reading that story one time, and I was like, man, if I were God, which don't play God, right? Don't play God. But I thought to myself,
I think
if I were God, okay, Karla, hold on. I thought if I were God, I would have let them keep building. You know, just reach the ozone layer. And they don't make it out of there anymore. You know, and that's why, that's why I'm not God, right? Because I don't have that unconditional love because He didn't do that. But He let them continue to live. Yeah. You know, He let them continue to be, continue to experience, continue to grow, and continue to seek and find Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love is just
a journey.
A journey.
An adventure.
Yeah. And honestly, once you have God's love, like, everything changes. Mm-hmm. And so if you haven't experienced God's love, I would just recommend to like have this moment by yourself and like outside of like other people, like just by yourself in a room. If you don't like the lights on, turn them off. Play some music. If you don't listen to Christian music, just play to like instrumental music or whatever, or no music at all. But just have a moment where you're just like, if you want to experience God's love, just say, God, can I experience your love right now? It doesn't have to be complicated. That's the thing.
Yeah, as long as you're
open to it. I feel like people sometimes
it.
think like, do I have to pray a certain way? Do I have to say things a certain way so that God can show me His love? No, like it's just a moment. It's just a matter of opening yourself up because it's been there, you know, like, and that's the part where it's like, I've heard people say like, hey, do you want to pray? And they're like, I don't know how to pray. There's no perfect way of praying. You know, like even saying like, God, are you here? can I experience you right now? Or, you know, I want to be able to feel you right now. Or if you're real, do something. I don't know. Like, okay. You know? But just opening yourself up a little bit, you'll be able to experience it for sure.
And the truth is, you can say, I haven't experienced God. I haven't experienced his love. But you most likely did. Because you're alive. You're breathing. You're healthy. If you're healthy, right? You're healthy. You're living life. And even if you're not healthy, like, you're still alive. You're still living. You still have people who care for you. And if you are one of those people who just happens to not have anyone, you're listening to this podcast and we care for you. We may not know your situation. We may not know you. But from afar, wherever you are, we do care for you. And we do hope that you get to have this experience with God and that you get to grow even more than we have, even more than we're going to, right? Because that's like a win. You're winning. That's what that is. So, yeah.
So, guys, this basically concluded this episode. And we do hope that you are enjoying our podcast.
We have heard back from a few of you of how you are able to relate to this, and we're very glad that that you can relate. Not that you go through difficult situations, but that you can relate, right? Because that's the point of this.
Yeah, even like we said, you don't have to be a pastor's kid to be able to relate to this, but just the simple fact that you're able to feel what we're feeling or whatever,
or understand.
Yeah, that's just showing us that what we're doing, you know, has a meaning, has a purpose. But like we said, guys, if you ever need prayer, or if you ever just want to talk or reach out to us, you can do so through our socials. Karina,
at True Confessions PK on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And we have an email, true.confessionspk@gmail.com.
Yeah. So go ahead and do that. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
You can tag us too and things.
Yeah. Share
related to
our
True Confessions,
podcast
please.
to others if you do enjoy it. Also, go ahead and rate us on Spotify.
Yeah.
We would really be grateful for that. But until next time, guys, we hope to see you on our next episode. And yes.
Follow, like, subscribe, hit the notification.
Yes. Bye, guys.
Bye.